Hello, I'm single-minded Ryan. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this glow effect with a visual shader in Godot 4.5. If we just want a still image to glow, we can just use a mask to isolate the color that we want to glow. But here, we are working on an animation. I'm going to show you how to extract a color to make a mask. Once you understand how to do it, you can make any color to glow for an animation. First, you need to set the render method to forward plus. Next, you need to enable HDR2D. Go to Project Settings. Then select Viewport under Rendering. Now let's enable HDR2D, because the glow effect depends on the HDR value of the color. Next, to enable the glow effect, we need to add a world environment node to the root node of the scene. Let's create a new environment in the inspector. Then we can click on it again to expand it. Let's go to background and set mode to canvas. Now we can enable glow. Let's set blend mode to screen. I want you to pay attention to this HDR threshold, because any color with an HDR value that's higher than the threshold is going to glow. Let me show you how it works. I'm going to select the animated sprite 2D node of my player character. Then I can go to visibility and change the modulate color. And let's increase the I value to around 2. And you can see the entire sprite starts to glow. Basically, this is how we make the entire sprite to glow. But in my case, I just want the glow effect when the player is swinging the sword. So I need to create a mask to isolate the color that I want to glow. And I'm going to do it in a visual shader. So let's go down to create a shader material. Then click on it again to create a new shader. Make sure the type is visual shader. Then let me show you the color that I want to glow. I'm going to select the attack animation to the left direction. And I want this highlight color around the sword to glow. This color only appears in a couple frames in the attack animation. Next, let's open the visual shader we just created. Let me just hide the things we don't need to make some room. You need to make sure you are in the fragment mode. Before we go ahead to work with this visual shader, I want to briefly mention that the project I'm using here is from my latest 2D top-down Godot course on Udemy. In the course, I'm going to show you how to create a 2D top-down Godot game from scratch with good-looking game assets. And I'm going to leave the discount link to the course in the description below in case you are interested. Alright, let's go back to the visual shader. First, let's add a color node. You can find the color node under Input, All. Basically, this node represents the sprite itself. Let's connect it to a color operator node. Let's set the mode to difference. Next, let's create a color parameter for the B input of the color operator. I'm going to name it to mask color and set the qualifier to instance. This is to make sure that when you have multiple characters using the same shader, each shader can have an individual value for the mask color property. Then let's connect it to the B input of the color operator. What we are doing here is that we compare the mask color to the color of the sprite, and we are going to get a black color as a result when the two colors are the same. Let's connect the color operator to the color property of the output. By the way, if the mask color parameter doesn't appear in the inspector, then you might need to deselect and reselect the animated sprite 2D node. Now we can see the parameter in the inspector. Let me set it to the highlight color that I want to glow. I'm just going to put in the hex code here, since I already know the hex code of the highlight color that I want. And you can see the area near the sword becomes black. because the color of this area matches the mask color I just put in. Alright, next we need to turn this black color into a mask. Let's connect the color operator to an if node. Let's set the color for the A equals B condition to white. Let's put 1 in all 3 channels so we get the white color. Then we connect the if node to the color property of the output. Nothing happens because we need to increase the tolerance. Let's create a float parameter for the tolerance. Set qualifier to instance, and let's set hint to range. Usually for tolerance, we just need a very small number. So let's set min to 0.001 and set max to 0.003. Now we can tweak this parameter until we see the white part of the mask. Good, we have successfully isolated the color we want. And let me also double check to make sure it works for all attack animations for different directions. Seems like everything works very well. So let's go back to the shader editor. We want to use the mask to change the color of the highlight area. Let's add a switch vector 3D node. Then connect the mask to the value input. Then we connect the color node, which is the original sprite, to the false input. For the true input, let's create a new color parameter. I'm going to call it glow color. Set qualifier to instance. Now we can connect the switch node to the color property of the output. Let's set the new glow color property to the same color as we used for the mask color. Then we just need to increase the I value of this color to make it glow. I'll just set the I value to a number around 2. And we should be able to see the glow effect. If I go to the third frame of the attack animation, alright, we get the glow effect. We can select the world environment node to tweak the settings. Alright, now let's test the game. That's it for this video. I hope you have learned something new. And please check out my new course on Udemy from the link in the description below. Thank you and see you next time.